My half-sister, via my dad, contacted me after she left foster care 18 months ago. Dad and her mom lost custody of her when she was a baby, and she went into the system. I was 7 at the time, and my parents had divorced after Dad got her mom pregnant with her. Neither shaped up enough to take her back, and none of her bio relatives wanted her, at least the ones that were approached. Dad was estranged from his family, so I have no idea if they ever heard from anyone related to CPS back then. My mom was approached and told the social worker she would not take my half-sister. She told me about my half-sister and her being in foster care and told me that one day my half-sister might want to contact me. The day came and I was like, you know what? If she has questions, I'll try to answer them and we'll see what happens. She was enthusiastic to have me in her life and came on very strong. I set some boundaries and she pushed on them a lot until I let her know she was at risk of losing contact with me again. She backed off when we started getting to know each other like the strangers we were. She asked about my life, childhood, and mom a few times. She focused a lot on whether my mom had other kids. When I was 13, Mom took in my cousins, her niece and nephew, after their parents died. My sister was always so weird about that and recently brought it back up again and wanted to know what I thought about that and whether Mom needed time to consider it. I told her that wasn't something we needed to talk about. She went off, saying of course it was. She called my mom a witch and said she let her go into the foster care system to rot and separated us when, a few years later, she could take on 2 kids just because they were related to her. She started saying my mom owed her better than that, seeing as she's my sister. I lost my crap with my half-sister and told her my mom owed her nothing. I said she wasn't my mom's kid and my mom wouldn't have been the right person to raise her since she was born from Dad's affair, and she should be looking at her bio relatives to be mad at if she really wants to blame people for letting her go into foster care. My half-sister said she had every right to feel like my mom failed her and should have stepped up. She said she was a baby and she went through a living nightmare her entire childhood in the system. She told me I was an idiot for yelling at her and an even bigger one for defending my mom. She's still a kid in many ways and had a rough life, so I feel like my response was too much. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You're exactly right. Your mom owed and still owes her nothing. Plus, she was possibly still hurting from the affair too. She was in no way your mom's responsibility. And I understand why she would take your cousins but not your half-sister. Who needs a daily reminder of your SO's infidelity? I can understand your half-sister's pain. She understandably is angry about the situation she was forced into and understandably jealous as well. She's directing that anger in the wrong place. But again, she went through a rough situation and compared it to OP's and the cousins. I have a friend who's raising her husband's affair baby, and I think she's a saint. But she wanted to, and she could afford to, and her older kids are adults now, and she has nothing to do with her ex. No one would have blamed her if she had backed away from the whole thing. Wow, saint doesn't feel like enough to describe this woman. She's like the peak of humanity. Just wow. OP, I think if you can be as patient with her as you can and try to understand, it's not really about your mom, but about what she lacked growing up. Her kid probably needs a truckload of therapy to sort out her issues from a crappy childhood. I'm not saying you have to let her talk crap about your mom. You can correct that, but try not to hold it against her. And what genius told her your mom didn't want her? Who hands a teenager a list of all the people who rejected her? She should never ever have been told that. In her mind, it's probably just rejection on top of rejection. Not that what she said was okay. I just empathize with her. Update. Someone gave half-sister some info about what was in her file from her entering foster care. It's how she got my name too. She never found a family to keep her. She was bounced around a lot, and no bio family stepped in. I'm not willing to deal with this for the rest of my life. I never would have reached out to her. And honestly, having her in my life is not important to me, but I felt bad turning her away when she had nobody. I don't have our dad's contact info. He lost custody of me after she was taken away. I have 2 sisters. I'm 23, they're 28, Beck, and 29, Aita. Both have kids, I don't. We planned to do a family day at a local lake yesterday. Ada's father-in-law got sepsis, so she had to fly out and asked me to take her 2 kids to the lake. I said sure. Edit. I'm also staying at her house until she gets home. I was not just taking them to the lake. I thought it would be easy, even though I have a massive fear of open water, or sharks specifically. It came from when we went to California as kids. I loved the ocean. Then, however, the brain starts working. I had massive nightmares about being grabbed by sharks, and I really never swam again. I can go in pools as long as I can touch and see the bottom, but a lake, pond, pool at night, etc., will leave me with a pure panic attack. We got to the lake yesterday, and I started freaking out in my head. I was okay on the outside, but on the inside, all I could envision was some sort of shark grabbing my niece and nephew, and I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So I didn't let them swim. They cried, of course, and Beck said I was being ridiculous. I said I know, but I can't help it. She called Aita, and she told me to let them go in the water, that Beck would be responsible for them. I agreed. But as soon as they even dipped their toes in, I freaked out and told them no, that they had to stay on the beach. Beck screamed at me that she's just as related to the kids as I am, and she's overruling me. I grabbed both kids and loaded them in the car, and we left. We went to see the Taylor Swift movie and had a great time, and they were happy. I came out of the movie to about 200 missed angry calls and texts from Aita and Beck about not knowing where I was, me not telling them where I was going, while acting so irrationally, etc. I guess about an hour in, they remembered to check the Find Me app and saw we were at a movie, so that calmed down, but Aita ripped me a new one when I finally called her back and made me feel like such an idiot. I tried to defend myself, but she literally told me, "There's no defense for what you did today. You will never watch my kids again." Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Dude, lakes don't have sharks. You don't mention how old the kids are, but both of their mothers said it was okay for them to swim in the lake. You wigged out and didn't tell the mothers where you were going, hence the missed calls and text. Exactly. It's not about the swimming thing. It's about you taking your nibbling somewhere else for hours without notifying their parents. There was another adult there that you could have left the kids with, but instead, you ran off with them without a word. Of course you're not going to be allowed to babysit again. You have a big trauma if you're scared a shark would grab your nephew and nieces in a lake. Besides, if you're so afraid of big bodies of water, why would you agree to take the kids to the lake? That was incredibly poor planning on your part. And once you realized you were freaking out, why didn't you just ask Beck to watch over the kids while you went to take a breather? Why, once Aita told you that she was responsible for watching the kids over to your other sister, did you think it was appropriate to kidnap them instead of leaving them there to enjoy their day? I'd be like your sisters here and never trust you again with my kids. I, 35 male, was married to Laura for 7 years. We have a son who's a tween now. She was the light of my life. When we were both 28, we found out she had a rare form of cancer. She passed away 5 months later. This crushed me, and I was left drowning in my grief for a long time afterward. My son and I have been attending therapy weekly ever since. It's been tough, but we've made a lot of progress. I didn't feel up to another relationship for a while. I filled my time with hobbies, friends, and spending time with my son and family. Then a little over a year ago, I met Kayla, 33 female, at a work event. We share a niche hobby where I live, so we enjoy chatting about it. Eventually, we began to go out together. She's great but different from my wife. I love her for who she is as an individual. I was hesitant at first, but after speaking with my therapist, I decided to try for a committed relationship if we took it slow. At first, she was amazing. I told her about my past and that my son came first, even before our first official date. She was very compassionate and understanding about everything. After a few months of smooth sailing, I decided to introduce her to my son, and they also got along great. For the first time after Laura's death, I could start to see a possible future with someone else. Everything started to go downhill around 4 months ago. She seemed to be a bit more distant than usual, so I sat down with her one night to ask her what was wrong. She teared up and confessed that she felt like I had been neglecting her lately. She then said that she feels I'm using her as some replacement for my dead wife. This came as a total shock. Some of me will always love Laura, but I didn't feel like I was ignoring Kayla. I asked for some specific examples, but she didn't say much afterward. I felt guilty that I had made her upset, so I ended up apologizing and arranged for us to have a few more date nights, and she seemed happy again. Then 2 weeks later, she had to go to a cousin's wedding. I couldn't attend because of work, but she was only gone for a day. When she got back, I asked for some pictures, but she just said there hadn't been any of her. I thought it was a bit strange, but I didn't pry. Then the next day, a coworker of mine showed me one off a private page on Facebook. I was shocked to see an expensive pair of my wife's earrings on Kayla. My son's room has a small cupboard with pictures of him and his mom, letters from her, and some of her prized jewelry. I checked it as soon as I came home, and the earrings were returned to the cupboard, but in a different spot. I confronted her and she got mad, yelling at me for assuming she'd be so careless as to lose or damage the earrings. I told her I was hurt that she'd go behind my back and take something sentimental, even if they were beautiful. She eventually broke down and apologized, and after a serious talk about boundaries, we moved on. Things improved for a while before her strange behavior started. It began with her changing her hair color to match my wife's. My wife had naturally light blonde hair that a lot of women dye their hair to today. So while I thought it was strange, I wrote it off as a beauty choice. Then she began regularly straightening her hair. She has wavy hair, and my wife's hair was pinned straight. She also changed her clothes to be more like my wife's, or at least what she's seen in pictures. She also had her ears double pierced and got a cartilage piercing like my wife. This was all incredibly unnerving, but she just said I was crazy. I asked my family, and they said I was nuts too, so I ignored it. Then she brought up having my son call her mama. I said I wasn't a huge fan of this idea, but if my son wanted it, I suppose it'd be fine. She went on a whole rant about how it was different because he called my wife mommy, so it's not like she's stealing a title. He said no, and she was a bit cold to both of us for days. She seemed like a totally different woman than the one I fell in love with. Everyone around me just said I was probably nervous since it's my first relationship after Laura's death. The final straw was when she got a tattoo that was almost the exact same as my wife's. It was in the same spot and color, just with a slightly different design. That was my final straw. I sat her down and confronted her a week ago with everything. At first she denied it all, but then cried and said I never loved her. She said she felt that she had to live up to the memory of a ghost. This upset me because I had asked her before what I did specifically, and she wouldn't discuss it. Plus, she was the one being weird and copying Laura. She kept sobbing and saying I didn't love her. I got so sick of it I yelled at her, saying that if she felt so unloved, we should just break up. I honestly do like her, but I've seen how miserable she's been lately, and I don't think this relationship is good for her mental health. She got dead silent and just left and drove away. I was just so tired of everything. Later that night, she was admitted to the hospital. She has no living family, so I was listed as her emergency contact. She wrote a long letter to me saying she loves me so much, but obviously, I don't feel the same, and I don't love her even a fraction of how much I loved my dead wife. I'm distraught over this. She's been so strange lately, but I really did love her before all of this. My mom and siblings keep saying that I'm awful for pushing her to this point, and that I should have doubled down in reassuring my love for her instead of ending it. They all got along great with her and had been hinting that they wanted us to get married so my son would have a mother again and possibly some siblings. I didn't think I was the idiot, but my whole family was cold to me and I had no idea what to do. They're saying I should visit as soon as possible and support her with this to rekindle our relationship. I'm not sure if I want to do that. She's so unhappy with me and seems obsessed over my dead wife. I keep thinking over this and wondering if I should have reassured her of my love again or broken up with her more tactfully. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Bringing a woman into your son's life who's mentally unstable is not better than having a mother figure. If you're going to have a healthy relationship with her, she needs to be happy with herself first. Anyone worth being with will understand your son comes first, and so should she. That means a mentally stable partner. If not, it's not going to work. I think his family feels it's time he moved on and found a new mother since his son needs a mother. What nonsense. I hope OP runs away. Also, OP, I'd recommend you don't let your family have unsupervised time with your son anymore. They may try to pressure him into trying to convince you to get back together, or even worse, that it's his fault since he refused to call her mommy. I'm so sorry you're having to endure this. Do not visit her. Do not speak to her. Do not try to help her in any way. You broke up. Now cut her out and make it permanent. Contact a lawyer and see if they can send a cease and desist so you're not her emergency contact. I'm serious. She's nuts. And the letter she wrote? Really? How much you actually didn't know about her? I have a sister who's 25. I'll call her Tessa. I'm going to be blunt and say that I look better than her. It's due to her not taking care of herself at all. When I was staying active, she was not. I spend my money to get skincare and keep my hair nice. She doesn't. She doesn't dress nicely either. She's always in sweats, even going somewhere nice. Overall, I look better than her. She has the money to do these things. She just doesn't. Now every time I see her, she'll comment something about the way I look. If I tell a story that turns out good for me, she'll tell me it's because I'm pretty, and so on. I assume she's jealous, and I've talked to her about it. Now I just passed my test to get my license for my job. I was telling the story at dinner, and she told me I passed since I was pretty. Makes no sense. I had enough and told her to stop saying I have the pretty privilege and that it's her fault that she looks ugly, not mine. She left the table after calling me an idiot, and my family is split. Not the idiot. Your sister seems insufferably insecure. If she won't take care of her vanity, she reaps what she sowed. Maybe give her some skincare tips, like getting sleep and staying hydrated, and maybe even recommends a facial moisturizer for her. Giving her a solution to her problem might raise her self-esteem. If she doesn't take that advice and run with it, that's her problem fully. She no longer has a valid reason to complain about you being prettier than her. Family torn? Tell them you tried helping her with her health and skincare. They can't complain then. Jealousy is hideous anyway. Everyone's the idiot here. She is wrong and jealous, that's clear, but you didn't have to call her ugly. That was rude too. As a fellow conventionally pretty girl, you have to admit there are times when being pretty does play in your favor. Though LOL, which doesn't make you an idiot, it's just the way of the world. Being stuck up about your looks isn't a good look on anyone, so you might consider taking it down a notch on the whole. Your post doesn't paint you in a good light, in my opinion. Someone who chooses not to take care of her appearance and puts OP down continuously with pretty privilege is insulted when it's pointed out that she chooses to be ugly. No one called her ugly. I have a sister who pulls the same crap about weight. I exercise and diet and keep my weight reasonable. She doesn't, and always makes comments. When she complains, I tell her the only thing I have that she doesn't is the power to do things that need to get done. Then, of course, she starts crying and playing the victim.